Repeat after me. I do not have a discipline problem because you don't. Let's talk about why I know that you don't have a discipline problem. Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. We are on day 6 of our 21-day self-transformation challenge. If you have not been following the challenge so far, don't worry, this video is in the playlist and I've linked the playlist down below so you can catch up with everything we've been doing. This entire week has been focused on your mindset, dealing with internal factors, external factors, conquering your fears, doing an audit of everything that's surrounding you, building affirmations that really help you grow into your best self, and everything else in between. And today, we are dealing with this myth that you don't have self discipline. And let me tell you why. If you have a job, if you have a high school degree, if you have a college degree, then you do not have a discipline problem. If you have kept a child alive, if you are a mother or a father, you don't have a discipline problem. You have a self worth problem. Those are two different things. And you know why I know you have a self worth problem? Because for some reason, you do not show up for yourself in the way that you have the capacity to show up for others, in the way you show up for your job. You show up for things that you have to show up to. You are disciplined enough to hold a job, which means you are disciplined enough to show up for yourself. But for some reason, you do not feel like it is worth showing up for yourself. And let me give you an example because this is something that I had to deal with, especially in my 20s, was the fact that I would show up for other people more than I would show up for myself. If someone else wanted to meet at the gym because they're like, oh, I'm trying to get my body together, da da da, I need a support partner, I would show up. And yet, when it was time for me to go for a run by myself, oh, I'm just going to stay in the bed. But you could show up for her in the same way. You could buy them presents, but you couldn't get yourself the organic food. Okay. And I had to start thinking about why. And this did come up in my therapy sessions because she's like, why wouldn't you do that for you? How many things have you done for others that you have not done for yourself? What have you given for others that you have not given to yourself? That is not a discipline problem. So many people do not have discipline problems. Why do you not feel like you deserve this exact same way that you show up for other people? If you need to pause and think about it, that's okay. We'll come back. We'll be here. Don't worry about it. Take all the time that you need. But I'm pretty sure that's the problem. And if that's not the problem, feel free to skip this video. But for those of us who have shown up for other people more than you show up for yourself, I want you to stay put. You stay right here because we're going to talk about it. So, how do we work on our self worth? Some of that is what we've talked about in other videos, building up our affirmations, understanding where our self doubts are. But sometimes the work that needs to be done is a little deeper than that. Firstly, I want you to ask yourself, when did you stop showing up for yourself? And if you never stopped, why did you ever not show up for yourself? When did you start showing up for other people and putting their wants and needs before your own? And I get it for parents. Like, if you have a child, that's a very different situation. It's completely understandable that you're putting their wants and needs before yours because they are reliant on you. But for everyone else, if you do not have a adult dependent that, needs you to live their life in a comfortable way, and you do not have a child, but you put friends, boyfriends, family members, aunts, uncles, whatever it is, before yourself, when did you start doing that? And if you've always been doing that, was that a decision that you made? Or is that a decision that was made for you? Is this a habit that you built for yourself? Or is this a habit that other people naturally built for you? For instance, if you're an eldest child, most likely this was partially a habit that was built for you because you had younger siblings. And of course, they are less experienced in the world, and there is some expectation that you're going to look out for them. And for some people, that carries on throughout the rest of their life. Some of us are people pleasers. I used to be a people pleaser. This is not my opinion. This is what a therapist told me that I was a people pleaser. I cared more about showing up and making other people happy than myself and my own happiness. And I don't think that was always rooted in a negative way. I just love to see the joy in other people. Like, that's why I do what I do now as a life coach, is I love seeing other people be joyful, and that's what brings me joy, but almost to my own detriment, because if it meant doing something kind for somebody else, I'm like, oh, sure, I can sacrifice. but I wouldn't sacrifice for myself in the same way. I wouldn't sacrifice some of those friendships for me to have alone time to work on something that was important to me. So now that you understand that, once you understand the root of why you're doing this, it's now time to decide how willing are you to put yourself before others so that you can become the person that you want to become. There is no wrong answer. There is absolutely not a wrong answer to that question. For some of us, a life of service is more appealing to us, it's more fulfilling. But for some others, that may not be the situation. But for that to be a reality for you, you will have to sacrifice some things in the way that you show up for other people so that you can have some of that energy left for yourself. For instance, I feel like I say this in like every 3 videos, putting your own mask on before you assist others. This is the same situation. When you want to have self discipline, that discipline also means having boundaries with other people to have space to do the things you want to be disciplined in. It's very difficult to be disciplined in going to the gym if you don't have time to go to the gym because your boundaries are non existent and everyone else is calling on you. They want something, they need something, and you're showing up for them first instead of saying, oh, hey, I'm gonna go to the gym first and then I got you. And setting up an environment in a relationship where that person is not going to take that like, what do you mean? Because they're so used to you showing up, boom, 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 whenever they need you. And that could be a transitionary period that may take time, especially if you've been doing this for years and it's going to be a switch for them. But if they care about you, I'm pretty sure they'll be fine. Most likely what they need can wait 30 minutes or 45 minutes for you to be on the treadmill or do stairmaster for 10 minutes. Because if you just starting out, you're probably not going to do more than 10 minutes anyway. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But having discipline means you need to have the space to be disciplined in the things that you want, which means creating boundaries, which means having conversations and knowing that you are worth the boundaries that you are setting, because what you provide to people when they are within those boundaries is of great value, which is why they want to have you in their life and why they're so sad that they're going to get less time with you. But they'll be okay. They will most likely be okay. And if they're not okay, then that's another conversation that you need to have with that friend and figure out whether it's something that's just pulling from you and whether that relationship may be a little toxic because they don't know how to live and be okay without you, especially if that is not your child and that is not someone that should naturally be dependent on you for another reason. Now, once you have that time to be disciplined, it is now time to start showing up for yourself and having a reason that you want to show up for yourself. Because if you don't understand what your reason is and what your why is for why you need to show up for yourself and why you want to be disciplined, then it's going to be very difficult for your brain to start building the new habits that will allow you to get to your goals. So when you set a goal, let's say your goal is to lose 30 pounds. Why is that your goal? Why do you want to be disciplined enough to lose 30 pounds? You can be. You maintained a job for 10 years. I think you can handle going to the gym. But why? Because the why for your job is money. And that is a strong enough why for you to show up every day. And if that is the level of requirement you need, then you need to have a strong enough why in the other things that you want to be disciplined in. Because discipline isn't just about showing up, it's about the reason of why you want to show up. And that's what also leads to your discipline. The people that go to the gym every day, they're not just working out. Most of them aren't working out just for aesthetics. They like the endorphin kicks. It's related to their job. It allows them to operate better with like their children and their lifestyle. They're going hiking with their partner. There's usually a deeper reason why they want to be different. And if you have that reason, you have to keep that in mind when you're building these habits and when you want to get up, do whatever you want to do. And that is what builds discipline. And then you'll have the consistency. And that just comes naturally as a result of having discipline. But you already have discipline. If you take nothing else from this video, just listen to me saying you are already a disciplined person. You are already a disciplined person. When we hear, oh, you lack self discipline, that is a farce. Like, I promise you, you have some because you've made it this far. You have made it this far. You have access to the internet. You probably have a house or a home of some sort. You live somewhere, or you completed high school, you completed college. It doesn't matter. If you have completed any task from start to finish, then you have the discipline to do it. Outside of like, oh, I ate a cheeseburger, if that was your only life accomplishment, that's a little different. But for most of us, you've done more in your life than just that. If you've raised a child, you have discipline. There's no reason that you can't reach your goals. There is something mentally going on that's hindering you from reaching your goals, whether it's the fears that we talked about yesterday, whether it's your external pushers that we talked about on day 3, whether it's your internal narrative that we discussed on day 2. It doesn't really matter. As long as you figure out what that blocker is, all of those are really connected to your self worth. Once you conquer self worth, knowing that you are worthy of showing up for 100%, of seeing what actually the results can be when you show up for yourself 100%, discipline's gonna be the easiest thing you got. That's gonna be the easiest part. The hard part is the work that it gets, that the work that leads to you having that self worth. The work is always gonna be the hardest part. The shadow work is not fun. I know you guys didn't enjoy the self doubt homework where you had to like work through your self doubts and understand why those are the things that you don't like about yourself or you don't love or you're not used to or confident about in yourself. I'm sure you didn't love yesterday where it was a matter of conquering your fears. Why do you have the fears that you have in life? And yet there are results and there's a reason that those things are important. Because once you understand those, the discipline, a breeze. So let's get you to that point. Start making space for yourself in your life and start small. It doesn't have to be something big. Self discipline could be something, if you have a goal, let's say your goal is to lose, that stick with that. I like to stick with the same example in every video, like different ones, and just ride that throughout the whole video. But for today, let's say that goal was to lose 30 pounds. That discipline doesn't mean getting up at 5 a.m. on day 1 to go to the gym. No. Discipline for day 1 means if you're a mom, asking your husband to watch your child for 30 minutes so you can go on a walk. And I know for some people that's going to be hard. Asking for something is going to be hard. I am also somewhat of an independent woman. I don't like asking for things either. And that's going to be a requirement throughout this whole process is having a village. And we talked about that earlier in another video. It also means just, let's say, if, once again, your goal is to lose 30 pounds, seeing what you can change in your diet, going to a grocery store and getting different ingredients than what you normally get, and then making time to cook that food. Because for so many people, you may have the discipline, but you can't find the time in your schedule to get it done. And that brings us to boundaries and knowing that your goals are worth setting boundaries and worth sacrificing some other things you want for yourself. Once again, losing 30 pounds, cut alcohol. That means setting boundaries with your friends when you go out. If they are drinkers and you're like, I'm not drinking right now, I got goals, they'll be okay. They'll probably give you a hard time. They might try to like sneak you a shot because they're like, ha ha ha, but like, they'll be okay. And if they are not okay with you not drinking for 30 days, it's time to do a friendship audit. why are you keeping these people? Some of these people probably need to go. Unfortunately, like we'll warn them, but they may need to be brought down a friend tier or two. And that's what this is also, that's one of the hardest parts I will say about becoming your highest self, um, connecting more with your best self is that not everyone's going to make it with you to the end of the journey. Because those who are willing to put in the work, you're going to start getting annoyed with people that don't put in the work. One thing one of my friends said to me, she was like, the worst part of therapy is dealing with people that have never gone to therapy. And that's going to be a very similar experience once you start getting closer to your highest self. Once you start putting in the work, developing the better habits, you're going to notice when other people have unfortunate habits or unhealthy habits. And to you, you're going to say, oh, you can work on this, you can try this. And they're going to be like, no. You're going to be like, why? Because to you it's making sense because you're seeing the results, right? But that takes time and it takes grace. I encourage you to have grace throughout this whole journey, grace for yourself, grace for others around you, grace for people you don't even know because you're going to probably come across a few of them. That was one of the things with for me in yesterday's video. We talked about overcoming fear of failure and fear of success. uh One thing about being successful as a YouTube creator is understanding that I'm gonna have to have some grace with some of these people in the comments because I already get these weird things on like TikTok and I'm like, oh my gosh, grace. Give them grace. I'm not a violent person. So it can be difficult to deal with, but I understand that like Not everybody is healed in the way that you've been healed. And that means that they're going to do some things that unhealed people do and hurt people. But that doesn't have to be you. That doesn't have to be your story. And that doesn't have to be your experience. Setting those boundaries is going to be key in the next few years as you get closer and closer. So just be understanding, be willing, understand that sacrifice is part of the journey, failure is part of the journey. But once you have the consistency and you start seeing the results, the discipline's going to get a lot easier. Once you create the boundaries, the discipline's going to get a lot easier. And once you build your self worth up to know that you are worth the work, you are worth the effort, you are worth the sacrifice, everything gets so much easier because you start to understand why the work is worth it. And once you do that, the sky is the limit. So, all right, guys, I hope you got closer to the sky today. But I will see you guys tomorrow for our next video. And I hope you have a beautiful day and get closer and closer to achieving your dream self. Bye, y'all.